the box. Thank God for men of reason.
Hello, dear viewers, Andrew Lapomardo, and today we're gonna talk about 10 beautiful but deadly female Cenobites from the Hellraiser universe, backstories and demeanors explained. Let's get going. What Clive Barker created in his 1986 novella, The Hellbound Heart, was nothing short of a masterpiece as far as horror is concerned. While he is not comparable to writers like Stephen King or H.P. Lovecraft, he definitely has a mark so deep in Hollywood that it has become eternal. Clive Barker's Cenobites are not your regular movie monsters who kill teenagers while they make love to one another. The Cenobites are something much more sinister. They have a vision and goal, which they follow in every deed they perform and every step that they take. Cenobites are essentially demons, working for the Satan-like Leviathan, and they come to take away anyone who opens up the Lament Configuration, or the portal that links hell with earth. Leviathan is the god of flesh and pleasure, and all Cenobites see flesh as an object of craft, something that should be worked upon to create pieces of art. Now, to a layman, that might look like humans with a severely serious love for sadomasochism, but that would be an understatement, as well as an oversimplification. We have to understand that the Cenobites are created when a man or a woman desires such levels of hedonistic pleasure that are unimaginable for the human mind. Naturally, they are unprecedented and otherworldly pleasures, and with such extreme desires come equally extreme results. These minions of the Leviathan take the human who opens the Lament Configuration and subject him to such extremities of pain that they fail to differentiate between pain and pleasure. Pinhead, Leviathan's most favorite Cenobite, once said that they are angels to some and demons to others, and no other definition is more apt. In this video, we will explore the top 10 most beautiful but deadly female Cenobites that have been featured in the films and comics. So sit tight as we explore the greatest hedonistic odyssey ever produced by English and American cinema. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Number 1. Angelique. Unlike other Cenobites, she was the demon princess of hell, and the daughter of Leviathan himself. So, it's important to note that she was not always a Cenobite. We do not know how she spent her days in hell, but her real story started as far back as 1796, when a toy maker named Philip Lemachon invented the greatest puzzle of his life, called the Lament Configuration. Lemachon had made a puzzle box at the behest of a rich Frenchman named Duc de Lissel, but unbeknownst to Lemachon, the box was to be used by Lissel and his assistant Jacques to open a portal between hell and earth. When Lemachon witnessed this horrific event, he began making an anti-Lament configuration, or the Elysium configuration. But before Lemachon could do anything substantial, Jacques and de Lissel had already summoned Angelique from hell. Upon her arrival, the first thing she did was possess the body of a poor girl that Jacques and his master had brought for sacrifice. Jacques went on to kill his master, so that he could be the only one who could control the demon he had summoned. Angelique agreed to work under him, on the condition that he would never defy a deed that would be commanded of him by hell or Leviathan would intend. Together, they killed Lemachon and tried to destroy his bloodline. But Lemachon's pregnant wife managed to escape. A couple of hundred years later, Angelique learned that the shape of the Lament Configuration had been used as the design for a building. She asked Jacques to take her there, but he refused. And she killed him for that, because it was an act against the wishes of Leviathan. Upon reaching the place, she summoned Pinhead, but he had changed completely. Pinhead transformed Angelique into a Cenobite, using the human body she possessed. Later, in 2127, Angelique Pinhead, and a few other Cenobites learn that another member from Lemashon's bloodline had managed to create the Elysium configuration, disguised as a space station. The Cenobites reached the space station, but it would be their end as the Elysium configuration had been activated, hence shutting down the link between Hell and Earth. Number 2. Abagore. Abagore is most well known for her sister, the female Cenobite, but Abagore herself made quite a few appearances in the Devil's Brigade series. No one really knows who Abagore was before Leviathan took her, but there are rumors that she could have been Cleopatra, who had Mark Antony on his knees, or Helen of Troy, whose beauty started a war and launched 1,000 ships. Irrespective of who she was in her past life, she will forever remain a Cenobite and a servant of Leviathan. She cannot be killed or even wounded with a human weapon. Therefore, one would need a Cenobite weapon or a blessed weapon to cause any harm to her. Like most Cenobites, she has pale skin and minuscule black hair, but of course, her head is filled with pieces of sadistic art. So much so that she has several sharp spikes inserted on the top of her head, while her mouth has been stretched out like a zipper. Abagore loves to use a whip that ends in several hooks, and to suit such a weapon, she wears an extremely revealing dominatrix-styled leather suit. Although a fairly unknown Cenobite, Abagore possesses excellent strength, stamina, tolerance to incoming damage, etc. And she is also proficient in the dark arts and seducing men around her. Her control over them is such that her words become their commands, and the men begin acting like her slave. And yet, all her deeds are aimed at pleasing Leviathan. According to mythology, Abagore was one of the greatest lords in Hell, who ruled more than 60 legions of demons. Some view her as the sister of the famous nun-turned-Cenobite, female Cenobite. However, this sisterhood is based on their eternal punishment in Hell, and the love for torture that the two Cenobites share. Number 3. Ashma Diva. While little is known about Ashma Diva's transformation into a Cenobite, it was mentioned in the comics Hellraiser, Nightbreed, Jihad number 1 and 2, that she and her sister Yamavadatu became part of Alastor's Gash and turned against the forces of Hell. The objective of going rogue was the destruction of Nightbreeds, who belonged to an age-old species that believed in chaos over order. But Leviathan had forbidden Alastor and his followers from slaughtering Nightbreed because it would have brought chaos into the realm, something that was against Leviathan's will. However, Alastor went ahead with it anyway, and ended up launching a jihad, or struggle, against Nightbreed. Once the fight started, Leviathan sent his priest and most ardent follower Pinhead, and another Cenobite named Chatter, to take care of the situation and restore order. Interestingly, Ashma Diva was a dwarf Cenobite, and appeared to be the smallest of all. Much like Abagore, Ashma Diva had long slits on both sides of her mouth, and possessed little golden hair that covered almost all of her body. But despite her small size, she was ferocious and fiercely protective of her elder sister. According to Zoroastrianism, the term Ashma is the name for the demon of wrath, while according to Sanskrit, Diva means God. That's an interesting nomenclature that blends hell and heaven. Number 4. Yamavadatu. As mentioned earlier, Yamavadatu was the elder sister of Ashma Diva, and was also part of the Gash of Alastor. The rebellion had ended in their defeat and death of Diva, an event which Yamavadatu greatly mourned. However, Yamavadatu herself managed to escape the purge with the help of another Cenobite named Gehenna, although their fates are largely unknown. Unlike most Cenobites, Yamavadatu wears a tight red leather outfit instead of the typical black one. Furthermore, she wears a red mask that's stitched right on her face. Cenobites are not known to have hair, but Yama brandishes a white ponytail. Yama shared her sister's fiercely protective nature, but in the end couldn't save her. Number 5. Wire Twin. We know that Cenobites cannot distinguish between pain and pleasure, right? But there existed a pair of twin Cenobite sisters who devoted their eternal undead lives to seeking pleasures of the flesh by torment and torment only. Well, the Wire twins spent their entire human lives as two beautiful sisters who often indulged in exploring the boundaries of hedonism, and in the process, they often made use of their own bodies to gain control and power over the men they lay with. Their hunger was so insatiable that they ultimately walked through the doors of Leviathan's hell in search of a greater sense of pleasure. And even in there, while feeling sensations beyond their darkest imaginations, they were not entirely content. The twins were then converted into Cenobites, who took pleasure by ripping people apart. Interestingly enough, their official description goes like this: Leviathan's sisters of tormented pleasures, two perfect twins in their human form, who stumbled into the dark world of the labyrinth. Now, their eternity is spent in the sisterly sharing of the torments of the flesh of their victims. These scantily clad women in revealing clothes had another strange weapon at their disposal. They had a phallus-shaped tongue, which they also used to torment their victims by giving them pleasure. It's really difficult to imagine what this sweet torture would feel like. I mean, even if you are into that stuff, you'd still be blown away with what they'd make you feel. Number 6. Sculptress. The Sculptress is every bit beautiful and classy. She would come to you in her pretty dark green off-shoulder dress and carve your body into one of her mannequins and keep the parts for her other human body artwork. Sweet, isn't she? Although her real name is unknown, her love for art and craft involving the human body has given her the placeholder name of the Sculptress, and it is best to describe this minion of torture by one of her stories. So, as we've already established, she works with human body parts. Now, one question that arises is, how did she procure these bodies or humans? Well, the bodies were brought to her by a Cenobite called the Delivery Man, who was also her love interest. But the Delivery Man had no lips, so they could never kiss. However, things changed when a young masochist man solved the Lament Configuration to open the portal to hell. Out came the Delivery Man, who took the poor masochist to the Sculptress, so she could make something worthy of the poor human. But strangely, the man started to fall in love with the Sculptress. The more she would sever and mutilate him, the more love he would feel for her. She would address him as "my sweet," and he would fall deeper in love, until one day, he saw the Delivery Man and the Sculptress make love. The Sculptress realized that physical pain was a pleasure for the masochist man, so she wanted to employ psychological pain. Naturally, she cut off his lips and gave those lips to the lipless Delivery Man so that they could kiss. This physical pain was nothing compared to the psychological shock the masochist man had just felt. And that's what gave the Sculptress a sense of victory over the man. This tempting masseuse of torture had unparalleled devotion for her work, and she understands the intricate bond between pain and pleasure. We think her sadist tendencies get heightened in the fact that she sees her victims as objects or raw material for her creations and nothing more. She's an exemplary hedonist. Number 7. Merkova. Now, there have been very few Cenobites who have explicitly been involved in romantic relationships, or whatever it is they call it in hell. We just saw the Sculptress and the Delivery Man, but they did not set couple goals for other Cenobites. It was Merkova and her lovely boyfriend Pinhead who did the honors. However, we think that the sole purpose of making Cenobites love each other was to give a sense of relatability to the evil Cenobites. You know, like something that the viewers or readers could relate to and empathize with all Cenobites, especially Pinhead. So, now we do know what these minions of hell do when they're not killing or torturing people. Now, Merkova has a strange appearance. Yes, she is hot, of course, and Pinhead wouldn't settle for anything lesser, but she has the bones of a horse's snout stitched to her face. Moreover, she has 2 horses' legs instead of human legs. Unlike most Cenobites, she has long hair styled in a mohawk, and her arms have horsehair. Unfortunately, this interesting character didn't thrive long enough for a long period in the Hellraiser universe. She was heavily wounded by the Harrowers, who were humans with powers to fight Cenobites. Courtesy of Leviathan's sister, Mortimum, she teleported back to Hell, where Pinhead saw his love succumbing to her wounds. He pulled the sword out of her guts, and she perished in Hell. She's one of the few people to have died twice. Once as a human, and then as a demon. But then, what happens when you die in Hell? Or get destroyed? Killed? Not sure about the term.
I can dream now, Joey.
Number 8. Dreamer. In the third installment of the franchise, when Pinhead learned that he was a World War I British Army captain named Elliot Spencer, he split into 2 parts, one of which got trapped in a pillar called the Pillar of Souls, with distorted faces and writhing figures. This was later bought by a man named J.P. Monroe, who owned the Boiler Room Club. Now, Monroe found Pinhead trapped inside, and they made a deal. Monroe was to provide Pinhead with innocent clubgoers, while Pinhead would provide Monroe with otherworldly pleasure experiences. Now, where does Dreamer come into all this? Well, Dreamer was a Cenobite, who used to be a girl named Terry, who once shared some history with Monroe. When she learned that Monroe was about to offer her to Pinhead, she struck a deal with Pinhead.
Another life of unknown pleasures.
He was to turn her into a Cenobite in exchange for Monroe's life. The poor girl used to be an ever-confused soul who had almost no control over her life. Furthermore, seeing that Monroe had betrayed her, she became all the more lost and confused, and took actions that she didn't fully understand. At the end of the film, the protagonist named Joey opened the Lament Configuration and sent several Cenobites to Hell, including Dreamer. Interestingly, Dreamer was not a pure Cenobite, as her transformation didn't take place in Hell. Therefore, she remained a pseudo-Cenobite, but she was as lethal as pure Cenobite. Number 9. The Voice and Bright Eyes. Bright Eyes and the Voice used to be twin sisters in their human life. While Bright Eyes enjoyed the gift of beautiful, bright blue eyes, the Voice had a musical voice. But as fate would have it, the sisters one day opened the Lament Configuration, and all hell broke loose. When the Cenobites did their work on them, Bright Eyes was allowed to retain her eyes, but was turned mute. On the other hand, her twin sister retained her voice, but at a great cost. The 2 sisters were inadvertently summoned when a little boy named Andy Kendall solved the Lament Configuration, after his mother brought home the puzzle, among other toys for him. The sisters took Andy with them to Hell, but Andy's mother, Laura, followed them to Hell to save her son. The Voice then offered Laura a chance to save Andy. She said that if Laura promised to stay in Hell forever, they would spare Andy from any harm, but keep him in Hell until he grew up and was strong enough to try and escape his imprisonment. So you see, these Cenobite sisters were not just evil, but cunning as well. They not only got Laura to agree to stay in Hell, but also took a chance to keep Andy in there forever. I mean, escaping Hell is no easy business, is it? Number 10. Kirsty Cotton. Kirsty Cotton served as the protagonist in 3 Hellraiser films, including the first 2 installments of the franchise. She was portrayed as a young but quick-thinking girl who knew how to get around a particular situation to save herself. In the first film, she makes a deal with the Cenobites and offers her Uncle Frank in exchange for her own life. Even though she kept her part of the bargain, the Cenobites wanted more. They wanted to take Kirsty instead, but she was quick enough to send them back to where they came from. Later, her boyfriend Steve sent her to the Channard Institute under the care of Dr. Channard, but here too, she was not safe. The evil doctor had known about the Lament Configuration, and when he heard the truth from the horse's mouth, he retrieved the Lament Configuration and made a patient named Tiffany solve the puzzle. Furthermore, he collaborated with Kirsty's stepmother, Julia, to do pretty evil thing. Channard ultimately became a Cenobite himself, but was stopped by Pinhead and the other Cenobites from killing Kirsty and Tiffany. In Hellseeker, Kirsty discovered that her husband, Trevor Gooden, had arranged for her death by tricking her into opening the Lament Configuration. It was not late before the Cenobites made their presence known to her, but Kirsty offered them 5 souls in exchange for her own.
I will bring you 5 souls in exchange for mine.
In the end, Kirsty managed to kill the 3 women with whom Trevor was having an affair, after which she killed Trevor and the man with whom he had conspired to kill Kirsty. According to the latest story arc, Kirsty agreed to take Pinhead's position as the Hell Priestess and Leviathan's most favorite Cenobite. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.